you are an After Effects user for VFX or motion graphics, you know that you're constantly motion tracking footage. And sometimes, the camera's moving, sometimes there are things within the frame that are moving, and you have to use multiple tracking techniques to accomplish all of your needs, whether it's creating some rotoscope masks or changing signs in the background. And so I put together different techniques within After Effects for tracking, from a person in a shot to screens and other planes to clothing and anything that warps as it moves as well. So hopefully you find this tutorial helpful. The first is point tracking, and so you can go into your tracker window here in After Effects, hit track motion, and that'll bring up this point, so you can set it to whatever you'd like to track. In this case, I'm going to do his head. I'm also going to expand the inner and outer box just so that it kind of is tracking the whole head point here, and then you can track forward. Hit U to pull up the keyframes, and you could find, where you started, and then you can also start tracking backward from there as well. Now, to get that tracking data, create a new null object so that here you can edit the target, choose that null, and hit apply to X and Y. Okay. And so now you will have a null object that is tracked for the frames, all the frames that you decided to do. So if I wanted to put some text or something to him, you can then just parent it to the null. I'm going to trim the composition to where it's parented, and then you have text that is tracked to your person. You can also use that tracker if you want to track the motion. You can track rotation, and that'll give you 2 points. So this is what I use a lot for eyes, just because I want to track the corners of the eyes and not necessarily the eyeball itself. So you can put your 2 trackers there and track forward. The blinking throws it off, but one thing you can do is go in and manually adjust it as it loses that track. Same thing with adding a null object and using that as the target. I'm just going to trim the composition a little bit to avoid that blink, just to save some time keyframing the mask here for this tutorial. So I'm just going to create a white solid. Let's give her some white eyes. So I'm just going to take that solid. Then if we wanted to do something like cover the eyes, we can mask that out, parent this to the null, and then also animate our mask to adjust as needed throughout the shot. And then now I'm going to just feather the mask of the solid and then duplicate it and bring the feathering down just a little bit to give it kind of a glow effect. Feather out a couple times, and then that is how you can do something like tracking and changing some eyes. So you can do either a solid like this, or if you want to make it darker eyes, or do whatever changes to the eyeballs you want. You can also do a 3D track just by right-clicking Track and Stabilize Track Camera. So this is going to auto-analyze the shot. From here, it has all these tracker points, so you can just right-click and choose null and camera. That's going to create your camera data. And then if you want to put some text in here and say the beach, turn this into a 3D layer, copy the position from your null, scale this way up, and then let's also lift it so it's up in the air. And if you want to say fun. You can take this layer and create another null, and then copy and paste the position of that null to the second piece of text. And then you can have some like text and other elements that are within, you know, the with 3D depth of the shot there, something like this. Scale that down a little so it looks like it's farther away. But, you know, this is the idea. You can also use the 3D camera tracker to track objects, but to do that, you actually have to mask out everything else in the shot. So to do that, you can take a solid, make it black, turn it off for now. We're just going to create a mask around just the camera, and it can be a little bit rough, but just make sure we don't have too much besides the camera. Set your keyframe, and we're just going to make a rough garbage mask for this camera throughout the shot. Taking a little bit of extra time here to get this right is definitely going to be worth it, especially if you really want a good track. What I like to do usually is start with you know, choosing an arbitrary location and then splitting the difference in half each time until the track starts to match up and interpolate correctly in between. It's kind of looking okay through here. And now let's get to the end. So now turn this on, set this to subtract, and then we're going to pre-compose these two layers here. And then from here, we're going to track this shot. So track camera. And so now we can choose a point, null and camera, and now we're going to have some camera data. So let's say we want to say add some text or something, make it 3D, copy and paste the location, scale it up, go into your pre-comp, turn off the black solid layer, and now we should have something tracked to the camera itself. And where this can get kind of cool is if I take, let's do like a shape layer that just has a circle. I'm going to go back here, click on the tracking effect on the layer, and that's what pulls up those tracker marks. So I can make a new null where I want to have another 3D object. So I'm gonna make this circle. And then I'm going to kind of position it where that null was and then rotate it so that the perspective is right with the end of the lens. And just kind of, you know, make some subtle adjustments. It seems like it's tracking okay. So now if I duplicate this 3D object and then keyframe the position, I'm just going to slide it forward along the z-axis. Here we can start like creating some parallaxing effects in 3D space. You definitely have to mask out the camera here when it goes in front, but this is the kind of cool thing you can do with some 3D tracking of an object. So now we're going to track the surface of a plane. So first we're going to do this laptop shot. And you do that with a planar tracker called Mocha, and it comes installed in After Effects. If you just do Mocha AE, click on Mocha, and it's going to open a second interface. In this interface, you can make a little spline here, choose your corners. You want the track to be a little bit outside of what you're tracking, and then hit track forward. If you're making a screen, you can also set the corners using this planar surface, and then you can line this up on the actual corners And this is going to create some corner pin data later. And then you can kind of check the track this way. That looks good. Save it, close out of this window. Make a new screen. I'm going to pre-compose it. Here in the Mocha tab, go to Tracking Data, create tracking data from that layer. We're going to choose corner pin and then add it to the screen. Apply export. And now this screen is going to track to the footage. And then if you go inside here, we can put basically whatever we want. Because this pre-comp was 9 by 16 and then uses quarter pin data to kind of become basically 16 by 9 again, within this pre-comp, I do have to stretch things a little bit. And so I'm just kind of toggling back and forth to see how much I need to stretch it until it starts looking right. Sometimes I'll just do a second pre-comp. And then if you want to make the computer screen look like a computer screen, you can do all of those effects within this pre-comp layer. So if you use my script that you can download from my website, RGB Screens, we can create like a grid and a screen here, and that'll just help make this look a little bit more like a computer screen. And now, so another type of tracking is mesh tracking. And to do a mesh tracking, you are going to need Mocha Pro. It's a paid version of Mocha that allows for mesh tracking, but also has some other features where you can take your track and export it as shape data, so you can apply it to a solid and use it for like all sorts of rotoscoping and things like that. I definitely recommend Mocha Pro. I have an affiliate link in my bio, so gotcha there with a little promotion, but this is the tool in After Effects that I use absolutely the most. It was recommended to me by a VFX friend, and I could not be happier. So to do a mesh track, select something like the jacket here. We're going to choose mesh. And then we can also choose uniform. Auto is going to kind of find high contrast points. Uniform and then generate mesh again is going to create kind of an overall sort of mesh that we can track. One thing when you're mesh tracking is you want to pre-compose your footage first so that you have, the dimensions and the duration set pretty cleanly here. So we're going to apply Mocha to that pre-comp. And you want it pre-composed because what we're going to do is take this mesh tracking data and use it to track all the warping in the footage. And then we're going to take the Mocha effect, apply it to another pre-comp, and basically reverse engineer all that warping so we can make sure, so we can take that second pre-comp and have it all warped to the footage itself. And it's just overall easier when both of the layers are pre-comps that have the same dimensions and the same duration. And this is going to track all of the distortions on a surface. So this is great for clothing and also for faces. I've used it for some digital touch-ups where I touch up a face in Photoshop and then put it back on the footage using the mesh data from the track. So this is helpful if you want to add anything, but also like if you wanted to take out this logo, for example, on the back of their jacket, you could Photoshop a single frame and then use the mesh tracker to put it back on the footage. So now we're gonna pre-compose like a new solid, and then we're gonna copy the Mocha Pro, put it on this one, and we're going to choose render, stabilize, warp. We don't see anything right now, but let's copy this footage, put it over here. We're going to turn this into a guide layer, which means this layer, we can look at it in the pre-comp, but it won't show up in comps above it, and it won't render out. This way we can put something on her jacket, like Hawaii. And then if we go back, that should mesh and warp with the footage thanks to all of that mesh tracking data. So yeah, there are 5 ways to track in After Effects, and hopefully you found this helpful. I find that I'm just always tracking all the time, and like I mentioned before, sometimes you have to do multiple different techniques in a single shot to get something put together. So let me know if you found this helpful, and definitely check out Mocha Pro. Don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon. That helps support me making things like this if this is helpful. And there's also a bunch of downloadable 3D assets and project files there as well.